What's going on, everybody? This is Afro Think Tank, and today I want to talk about the average Trump supporter, the average Republican, the average white person that we black people have to deal with in America. And of course, what I'm gonna do at the end of my video, I'm gonna attach another video so I can give you guys a visual reference to what I'm talking about. Give you some backup to the things that I say out of my mouth. But a lot of times we always talking about situational awareness. We always talk about our condition in America, and sometimes you have to think about what it is that your opponent or the people that oppose you, where are they coming from, and how do we combat that, right? I always say education is the key, because education actually is literally the key to all our issues. If people are aware of certain things, then they usually tend to act differently. And the thing is, we always complain about how real African American history, real African American issues are not taught in our schools, right? And how it displaces us, how it leads us to be behind scholastically, educational wise, how it leads us to be behind. And it causes some of the conditions that we find ourselves in. But I want you to think about that exact same system, that institutionalized racism, that's not only used against us, but it's also used against poor white people, right? Because poor white people are also receiving the same education that we're receiving in our schools. Poor white people also receive lack of funding in their communities as our communities. Poor white people actually get beat up and abused by their police the same way with our communities get, even though ours is disproportionately more, obviously, but they also get it, right? And there's a segment of European Americans in this country that are not represented, right? Not in a good light. When people think of white folks in America, they think about the lawyers and all the high-end businessmen and the board meetings and Manhattan and Los Angeles and actors and Hollywood, and they think like that. They don't see the majority of white people in this country, right? Because the majority of white people in this country are poor, rural, evangelical, or some form of Christian white people, poor people, right? Very, how you have some groups in the world that are very, very, very religious, right? Well, the majority of white people in America are very, very religious, very Christian. They're very codified within their communities, meaning where the majority, right? The majority of white people, they live together in the Rust Belt, the central portion of the United States, more on the western side. They live in a bubble where there's not that many black people, there's not that many Spanish people, there's not that many Indians, not that many Asians. There's a small contingent within their communities, but for the most part, they're living amongst just themselves, Europeans, right? So the education system that they are under, the Republicans or the Democrats, whoever they decided to vote in against their own interests, but mostly the Republicans, if you just look at the Republican states and how their people are being treated, constituents, their educational systems have no incentive to teach basically all white educational institution about black suffering in America, about what white people really did to black people. They have no incentive to teach real history. They have no incentive to teach what their ancestors did to black people, without any bias. They have no incentive to do such a thing. They have no incentive to teach their children about real American history. They have all the incentive to teach them a fantastical history, a history that they would like to have happened. They like to teach how George Washington was such a hero and our founding fathers were so noble, and they were these epic individuals who who fought against tyranny and this and that. They don't teach that their founder fathers was greedy rich corporations just trying to keep their money from the crown. They don't teach that America was founded on people wanting to be kings and queens of their own volition and not listen to the kings and queens that they come from the European nations. They don't want to teach that the corporate entities made poor white people fight so that the corporate entities can be free to do anything they want over here, like slavery, genocide, and all manners of capitalistic debauchery. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that 4th of July wasn't about freedom. How can the 4th of July be about freedom when the people that were supposedly fighting for freedom were fighting for freedom to have the freedom to enslave, to keep another group of people free? How can white European America put any type of positive, spin on history if they would have had to tell the actual truth? They don't have no incentive to do that. They live in a bubble. Their educational systems teach them that slavery wasn't that bad. They really teach them slavery wasn't that bad. You can't even, the educational system tell them that Jim Crow wasn't that bad. These people didn't grow up in they grew up in Jim Crow, but they grew up around all white people. They weren't living on the fringes to where they saw the effects of segregation and all that stuff. All they know, there was like 1 or 2 black people within a whole county, and they had to deal with them, right? Or maybe that 1 or 2 colored people they had was a model citizen because they had to act like a model citizen in order to survive in an area that they lived in, because they were surrounded by white people. That's what model citizens do. They're afraid. They're afraid. They just capitulate in order to make their lives easier, right? So, sometimes when I sit back, I look at these white Europeans in America, and I realize they're about as knowledgeable as a village person in the most rural part of Africa, a village person in the most rural part of Southeast Asia. They're about as knowledgeable as of nomadic herds, tribesmen going throughout the desert. They're about as educated and informed as those people. People tend to think that Americans, and especially white Americans, are just inherently educated and knowledgeable simply because we're here. But that's not the case. We have access to technology, we have access to things, but everybody don't have equal access to all those things, right? And there's a large, significant portion of American society, European Americans, who are basically unknowledgeable, ignorant, through no fault of their own for the most part, about how the real world works, how America actually works, how politics works, how they're being manipulated by their politicians and business people, and how they vote constantly for their against their own interests, and being manipulated to believe that people that they don't even encounter on a daily basis are the people who are causing all the problems in their life. Now the people, you got people in the middle of America that's not even close to the border, worried about the border. That border doesn't even have any effect on them, right? You got people that just believe what the politicians say because they're wearing a suit and they got their hair slicked back, they got grease, and they're speaking in a political way, right? You got people who are simple, and they're not all bad. That's the thing about it. They're not all bad, they just don't know. They just don't know. A lot of them they're afraid and they don't know because they're being taught to be afraid. They've been programmed to be afraid and not know, right? Because you want them to be pliable. Politicians want these people to be uneducated. That's why they always defund education. That's why they do everything they can to make sure that the population doesn't gain in intelligence. Because when a population gains in intelligence, they become aware or woke of their situation, and they can tell the difference between when they're being pandered to, lied to, tricked, manipulated, and then it's not easy to manipulate people in the old-fashioned ways in which these politicians use. Right? Politicians are having a hard time manipulating people nowadays because the old ways don't work. Now you have to come up with new tactics because you have to be held accountable for the things you say. People can look everything up now. So every word that you come out your mouth is can be accounted for. So I just wanted to, for us black people, understand these are the people who are out in the middle of America because they were doing coal mining, they were logging, they were doing all the hard labor jobs, the only jobs they could possibly do. The children of these poor white people who were sent out to go do all these hard labors on behalf of these corporations, for minerals and for resources to ship, to various rich European places around the world. These poor white people are the ones who's losing their jobs because the industries in which they were out there in the middle of America to live, and they built communities around these small villages and towns in the middle of America that nobody even thinks about, that's being abandoned, right? Because there's no opportunities out there. The same way there's no opportunities in some places where we are as black people, there's no opportunities out there, right? And they don't understand this white privilege thing because they only live around white people. So they don't get to access the privilege of which they have it. They just can't use it, right? Because they're around just them, right? They don't get the benefit as far as they're concerned. They don't know or can't, they don't have a contradiction. They don't have a something to see to compare to. So as far as they're concerned, they can't be racist. They don't understand racism. They don't understand this white privilege because they haven't been recipients of white privilege. They've been victims of racism, the racism that they perpetuate because of the powers that be keeps them ignorant and unknowledgeable about what's really going on. Because of course the powers that be don't want the poor white people to be mad at the rich white people because there's more of them here. So if the poor white people, right, stop wasting time being racist towards everybody else, all right, then all of a sudden the only people that we got to be mad at are the corporations that pit us against each other with their fantasy political leagues that they run called politicians, right? It's like fantasy football. The same way you play fantasy football league, you pick and choose and you put money in, you try to win. It's the same way the corporations run politics. It's a fantasy football league. They got the money to play. They have their politicians. They'll push forth the agendas that their corporations want. As a matter of fact, sometimes corporations writes the legislations, pass it down to the politician, and the politician stumps and pushes that legislation within its local or national governing bodies or whatnot. But anyway, without further ado, I'm gonna attach this video. I want you to just pay attention, take out the bias. We know these people, they affect our lives because they make these very same people the police officers, the correctional officers, so they take all their hate and their lack of knowledge and their ignorance and their fears and they project that onto us, and we have to suffer because of it. So just take a look at these people. Just look into their eyes and look how they're speaking. They're not there. You understand? They're not there. You could tell that you're speaking to someone who gravely lacks in knowledge. A lot of people who gravely lacks in knowledge, who gravely lacks the ability to understand what's going on around them. Okay? So anyway, without further ado, this is Afro Think Tank, learn something, teach something. I'm out.
Trump were convicted of any of the things that he's been indicted for, is there anything that would disqualify him from your vote?
Mm-mm. No, because, I mean, he ain't the first one. Look at Clinton, look at Biden taking money from other countries.
But in fairness, none of them have been indicted. We've never had a president indicted. Now that he's been indicted, is there anything that makes you feel like, well, maybe he's not the right person?
No, sir. No, sir.
Is there anything you could imagine him doing that would disqualify him from your vote?
No, sir. Not right offhand. I want to think of right now.
We had somebody earlier tell us that if Trump was standing on the steps of the White House and murdered someone, he'd still vote for him. Same with you?
Mm-hmm.
How come?
I don't know. I like Trump. He just got something about him.
Have a great day. Thanks a lot. Is there anything that would disqualify him from your vote?
No, not at all. He hasn't done anything illegal. Let me put it this way. This goes back to the Department of Justice being a political machine at this point and not a Department of Justice. What about Joe Biden and his documents? He was only a senator and then vice president. He didn't have any presidential authorization to take those documents and scatter them all over from Pennsylvania to Delaware. I mean, really. I don't know. I just think that, if people can't see beyond this politicalization of the Justice Department, then I would say they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome.
There are people that think that you suffer from it.
Yeah, but they don't have an argument. They just don't like Trump. If you said, look, here's...
Say one nice thing about Joe Biden to me.
I can't.
Right, so you just don't like Biden.
Oh, because I've looked at Biden when he's just totally corrupt. How can you look beyond the corruption to say that this man could be a statesman representing the United States? The whole issue of his getting the millions of dollars with Hunter Biden, the media didn't cover that at all. Why? Why didn't they cover that? You must have seen the so-called text message, right?
Tell me about it.
Hunter Biden sent to some authority in China.
Why do you believe that, but you don't believe the other stuff about Trump?
What other stuff?
Well, you're saying that so they say. You just said to me, so they say, when I asked you a question.
Yeah, because they never tell you Trump's side of the story. They, meaning the media, the major media, where people get their so-called authorized information from, what's Trump's side of the story?
There's a lot going on in the news with the former president now, with indictments, with classified documents and things like that. Is there anything that would disqualify him from your vote if, for example, a jury finds him guilty of these things? Everybody's innocent until proven guilty. But if there's guilt, if there's further indictments, is there anything that would prevent you from voting for him?
Nope. Because it's smoke and mirrors is what that is. I don't I don't think he's guilty of that.
But I'm pushing back because that's my job. But if there's video, if there's audio, if there are people that worked for his campaign saying things, people who love Donald Trump but are being forced into cooperating because it's the law, would that change you at all?
It wouldn't, and I could honestly, because it's not the first time. He's not the first one, that's had to. But I don't think it's true. But even if he is, I just have that much respect for him and his love for America and him wanting to make it great again that I would still vote. Absolutely.
What does making America great again mean to you?
To me, just changes that I feel like that he's going to make as far as taxes. I don't know, just bringing things back to America, which he did a lot of that when he was in. Yep.
Right, I'll let you go. Okay. Thanks for stopping. Is there anything that would disqualify him from your vote?
Well, I suppose nobody's perfect, right? I mean, he's not a perfect president. I just think he's been used as a pawn to change elections. So,
in terms of, can you explain that a little bit?
Just to persecute him to try to change elections, to keep him from getting elected, and I think that's wrong.
Just go to the change elections thing. Where they're trying to do what then?
Well, if he's being persecuted, and then people start believing these allegations, then that may change votes, right? So.
Got it. Is there anything that would disqualify Donald Trump from your vote in 2024?
Yeah, if he decided that he was going to go and let China get into his wallet, or if he decided he would let Russia get into his wallet, but those are two things that Trump don't do.
Some people think that Russia's been in Donald Trump's wallet for a minute already.
Look, Trump goes and he makes this country great. He don't even take a paycheck. He gets all the crap from everybody. They can't even give him that kind of courtesy to say thank you. I mean, that's just ridiculous in my opinion.
What should we thank Donald Trump for?
Bringing light to a bunch of things that everyone's ignored for years.
Tell me some specifics.
The swamp. I mean, the reason why it ended up happening to him like it has happened is because he touched the wrong feet. So you stomp on the wrong feet, you get kicked out. That's always been the case in Washington.
So it's China and it's Russia. If he broke American laws and is convicted of it, innocent until proven guilty, if he is proven guilty and convicted, he could still get your vote.
Sure. I don't believe it for a second. He may do a few things, and yeah, he might like women. What man don't? But, there's all kinds of things that he might do. But is he going to go against the country? No, he's already proven for 4 years he can do the job. So put the man there that can do the job.
The first 4 years of his president, what accomplishments would you like to see continued?
Save the children. Most important thing is what's happening to our children.
Explain.
The infiltration of our education system and the abduction of our children. Over 800,000 a year go missing in the United States alone. They are taking so many of them and torturing them for adrenochrome. And people don't know what adrenochrome is, but you can look on Alibaba.com and find out what that is. They talked about it on the Ellen DeGeneres show, Sandra Bullock. And they were laughing and joking about the fact that they were using it to stay young and healthy.
What would you like to see Donald Trump do should he win? What are a couple of things you'd like to see him do?
Money. Money talks, and that's just it. And prices of gas right now is crazy. My husband's a truck driver, and the gas prices are insane. We can't even make a living, basically, because we're having to pay for gas.
I think he made America better as far as jobs and people working and our economy and our general atmosphere of brotherhood and getting along. Let's not kill each other and go crazy about each other. I don't feel like that was his attitude at all.
And do you think that's President Biden's attitude? What accomplishments do you like specifically?
That he was trying to secure the border and that the gas prices were low, food was low. Now everything's so expensive.
How much, in retrospect, do we look at the pandemic as being the cause of that?
I don't know. I think that was all fake.
The pandemic?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What was fake?
These shots. I didn't trust them.
Did you ever have COVID?
I'm sorry?
Did you ever have?
Yes, twice.
You got it twice. I'm glad you're well.
Thank you.
You mentioned policy that you like, Trump's policies. Which of his policies are policies that you like?
April. The Roe versus Wade happened because of Trump.
Well, okay, so let's. I was asking her. I'm going to get to you. Okay. Well, what's your talk to me a little bit about which policies you like.
Well, just I don't know. I mean, I can't really think of one right off the bat, but
I'd like to see him get us out of debt. Definitely.
Do you think
cost of living is way too high right now, and jobs don't pay enough?
Do you think that? So you want him to bring up the minimum wage?
Yes, definitely. Because people can't live off what minimum wage is now and support a family. I mean, there's just no way.
So you support the Democrats in Congress who are trying to fight for a minimum wage increase?
Yes. I mean, yeah, but yeah.
Okay. What did he do to make your life better the 4 years he was a president?
Maybe all of us got to see growth. Growth meaning to pause, and it's not no longer about an election. It's becoming a unity. Because if we don't unify, we don't grow. But what would you say?
What? The Democrats ain't about, the American people. They're about lining their pockets and screw us, basically. And that's just coming from a small town guy. There again, I'm blue collar worker, always have been. You ask anybody that was working during Trump, they had more money in their pockets. $1 and something for a gallon of gas. Now here I am paying $3 and something for a gallon of gas to get myself back and forth to work, my kids to school, to camp, and all that.
What policy-wise did you like? How did he make your life better in America?
Well, I think reducing regulations on business, let conservative thrive. The economy was better in a lot of ways. I just think he was a stand-up guy.
I'm Hispanic, and I really think that he helped this country securing the south border. That's important. Even if I'm Hispanic, people think like, why am I supporting Trump? I think he actually did a great job making sure drugs don't come to this country.
Do you give President Biden any credit for the economy starting to rebound?
No.
But you'll credit Trump with the rebound before, even though it was really continuing the Obama job surge is what Trump did.
I think he built maybe off of that, but our employment rate had dropped lower than it ever had been in U.S. history.
When was that?
That was back when Trump was president.
It had dropped?
Yes.
And you mean the unemployment rate or the employment?
The unemployment rate.
Okay. Because it was pretty strong for a while there before Trump got there.
Yeah.
First, you got to expose the deep state, and he's been working on that. And one of the creatures is here, Lindsey Graham.
Welcome to Pickens. Thank y'all for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank y'all. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a bunch. Well, you want to find something in common?
First